Okay, so from the last time I had a topology of this topology, and I have made a couple of changes. The last time I um, had network monitoring, I was using netconf, which was pulling information from from all the devices almost every 1 second and storing all the data into an SQL database. I have changed that to using gRPC and GNMI for streaming telemetry, and it is now storing in InfluxDB. I'm using two data sources. One is InfluxDB and the other one is Prometheus for redundancy purposes and almost just to have two different data sources. And I'm also using SNMP and gRPC for both of them. For InfluxDB, I'm using gRPC, and for Prometheus, I'm using SNMP Exporter and SNMP, which I'm going to talk about in some time. All right, so first talking about GNMI, I have enabled GNMI on all devices. As you can see here, it is running on port 6030, which I can show you here. Right, so it's listening on port 6030 for all gRPC traffic. In R2, it's the same as you can see here. R3, R4, S1, S2, S3, S4, and so on. So all the devices are configured with gRPC listening on port 6030. And I have a gnmic.yaml file. What that says is to log into the devices, use admin username and admin password, and the targets are all mentioned here. And it explicitly says listen on port 6030. And it is subscribing to these paths. Essentially, it is getting uh, the operational status of each interface, whether the interface is up or down, the in octets and out octets, which basically say what is the incoming traffic and outgoing traffic of each interface, and what is the CPU utilization for each CPU core in a device. And it is currently polling every 10 seconds, but we can change this to 1 second. Um, we also have, I'm essentially putting all of this output to InfluxDB, which is running on localhost 8086. I have the organization, a bucket name, a token, which I received when I was installing InfluxDB. Since I changed the value, I'm just quickly going to restart the GNMIC service. Talking about the GNMIC service, I am right. So I have a systemd service which is running behind. What it does is it is running GNMIC using this config file that I just showed it to you, subscribing, and it is subscribing on port 6030. And so it's just running in the background. Now that I've mentioned about InfluxDB, I will show you this is how InfluxDB looks like. Um, I will reset it or okay. So this is the bucket lab2-stream and interface counters is the measurement. And if you can see, there are multiple fields that I had subscribed to, like CPU utilization, average, minimum, and the MTO, the in octets, out octets, and the operational status, For example, if I take one of them and I select all of the CPU cores, this is CPU utilization average. And if I click submit, it'll show me a graph over time. What was the CPU utilization and percentage? The value that you see here, like 28% in this case, was for CPU 0 on switch 2. And similarly, if I see the interface in octets, which is the incoming traffic, and I click source and filter by R1. So all interfaces R1 traffic. I should be able to see how much traffic is flowing through each of the interfaces here. This is further visualized in Grafana, which I will show you in a bit. But before that, I would like to talk about how I'm using SNMP, SNMP Exporter, and Prometheus as well. So I have an snmp.yaml file which has a bunch of snmpoids. There are a lot of them, and a couple of them would be also checking if the interface is up or not, and CPU utilization, etc. I'm using this snmp.yaml file under snmp exporter. Now, what this exporter does is it is pulling from all the devices, and it is converting the SNMP values into PromQL, which is Prometheus Understandable Language.